pop stars. Welcome to this week's episode of the Popcorn Wind Down. I'm Eddie.
And I'm Tammy.
Thank you for joining us. This week's episode is brought to you by Extraction Services. If you know, you know. And if you don't, then we are not meant for you. That was kind of to the point.
Mm-hmm.
Tammy.
Mm-hmm.
To the military. Did you ever
Funny
think about
story.
going to the military?
I did. I actually remember, you do the college night,
Mm-hmm.
and the military is always there for college night. And I went to the table and I talked to them, and they were talking about all the benefits that you could have just from dedicating 2 years. And I remember going home and telling my mom that I was going to join the army. And she said, "No, you're not." And I said, "Yeah, I am." And she said, "No, you're not. You're my only child." She's like, "You're not going to the army." And that's the reason why. Because when she said, "You're my only child, you're not going to the army," I was like, that makes sense. Just in case. Because who's going to be there with her if I'm gone? So I did think about joining the military. And it really was for the college benefits. For being able to get my college education paid for. And my mom said no, and that was that.
Yeah, I thought about it after the fact. I was like, ooh, I could have gone to the military and become a JAG lawyer or a spy. It all comes back to me wanting to be a spy.
Mm-hmm.
But so this week we get an inside look into the military and the war in Afghanistan and a special bond that developed between soldiers and their interpreters, and how interpreters risked in hopes of being able to get a chance to experience the American dream. In Guy Ritchie's The Covenant, that bond is put on display when by Dar Salim risk everything to transport an injured Sergeant John Kinley, played by Jake Gyllenhaal, uh, Taliban country, back to the safety of his base. So, Tammy, what did you think of The Covenant? Was it good as its word or just another empty promise?
Good as his word. um, it was really good. I remember kind of hearing snippets of this story because it's based on real life. And I remember hearing snippets of this story, but never really truly paid attention. Didn't know exactly what went into this, what the U.S. promised these people who helped us out while we were over there in their country. But watching this movie, it hit me. It hit me real hard. It's so good. The acting is absolutely phenomenal. Um, it pulls at your heartstrings. It gets you thinking of the actions of not only us, but also the actions of the Taliban and the people who ultimately suffered the most in this war that we were in. But it was good. It was good. It had me on the edge of my seat, and it was action packed from beginning to end. Complete action packed from beginning to end. There wasn't at least to me, there wasn't slow moments. There wasn't moments where I was like, you ain't really need that part. You ain't need that scene. Every single scene, every moment played a role in the overall story and got you even more and more invested in Sergeant Kinley as well as Ahmed. So it was really, really good. What about you, Eddie?
Yeah, I loved it, and I remember seeing the trailer. I think sometime late last year. Those things that we were like, oh, okay, just as we're going through trying to figure out, and it was one of those things that we kind of put on the list. It was like, yeah, sometimes we do that and stuff gets bumped, and then I remember when we were going over the list, and I was like, oh, okay, what was that? I don't think I knew the name, and then when I was like, huh? And when you told me, I was like, oh yeah, definitely. There was no discussion. Yeah, and it lived up. It had two things playing in its favor. The fact that it was a Guy Ritchie movie. Guy Ritchie, is brilliant as he is, you have to be honest, he's a hit or miss director.
He is.
Um, And I loved his last movie with Jason. I loved the one he did with Jason Statham. And I also love the one he did with Matthew McConaughey. I can't remember the name of it. We saw it together. Um, where Matthew
The gangster
McConaughey was.
one, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
okay, I know the
So,
gentleman or
but
something like that.
so he's hit or miss, and so and this had been, and he had been going down the gangster movie route for a minute. Um, so I didn't know. I did. Jake Gyllenhaal had me. Guy Ritchie had, because I didn't know exactly what we would get with this movie, and he did a brilliant job. I'm channeling my wannabe side when I say that. He did a brilliant job, and it reminded me of a story. Um, God, when we finally were pulling out of Afghanistan. Um,
My
what
bad.
was this? Did you burp?
Motorcycle racing in a parking lot. I can't. But go ahead. I
I was like,
apologize. Because
oh,
I had to pause.
so
I was like, hold on. Is this in the parking lot? And it was. It was. It just went past. But yeah. Okay.
live podcasting, folks. But it reminded me of the story. I guess it was 2020. Officially about to pull out, and there's this guy. I can't remember his name. He wrote a book. Also, can't remember his name. But he was on the news a lot, and he was really frantic because his interpreter was still in Afghanistan, and they had remained friends, and for the visa program. And under 45, that was one of the things that got scuttled, completely backed out of our promise. Um, and so once we were actually going to officially pull out and leave Afghanistan, I don't know if you remember the chaos that ensued with all that, and all the people trying to get out, and the chaos. And he and his interpreter, because his interpreter was one of the people that was on the list. He had been in hiding, because he had been on this because of the help that he had extended to. And he was reporting like every night for 2 weeks. Rachel would have something about this guy in the journey. He was tweeting it, trying to get his interpreter out, and I think that's how into the stories, because he started tweeting like the help, and just the scenes of when he was calling and everything that he went through. I just remember, and the promises that we made, and the promises to the many that we did not keep, um, various reasons. Um, Even before 45 just came in and scuttled the program, I remember under the Bush administration trying to get some out, and even under the Obama administration, there was a lot of political pushback. How do we know? Well, you vetted these people to help you. They were thoroughly vetted. That's how you know that they are not coming here to be an enemy of the state. Like everything they sacrificed at home. So it just brought up all those stories, and those moments is one of those, we talk about all the time. As much as we love our country, this mug is deeply flawed and does some shady shit. So it brought up all of that for me. But I brilliant job. And I'm just gonna go out on a limb. I remember when I asked you if you'd seen it, and I remember one of the first questions I asked, to get into the spoilers. I was like, Jake Gyllenhaal. I'm just gonna say he looks good in anything that he does, and I don't know if it's just because he's a, or I think in this role there was still a sex appeal. It wasn't like in the boxing movie that he did or anything like that. I think it just has to do with his charisma. He's just so charismatic as an actor that he still just has this he just brings this air of, it just has this sex appeal to it. Not like John Kinley was just this sexy thing, but he just had this attraction. I don't know, just the quality about him. So I will say that. But um, I really, really loved it. I thought Dar Salim, his name is right, but since it's me, we know I'm probably mutilating it. I'm sorry for that. I thought he was excellent as the stoic interpreter who wasn't taking shit from anyone. And one of my favorite scenes is when they first meet, and he's like, "I heard you were a mechanic." He goes, "Yeah, yeah." He goes, "All right, you know what that is?" And he looks at him. He looks at the part. He looks at him, and he goes, "It's an
An
engine."
engine.
I was like, "Yeah." He just looked at him, and he goes, "Yo, boys, come meet the new interpreter."
I love
But
that. Okay. That was a good one.
and so I think one of the things that I loved especially is it was earned. Like it wasn't just they automatically become just like these great BFF, the brotherhood that was born through like the bonds of fire and the trust, like you saw there. Um, it's like because it's a dangerous situation for all the way around. Even though they agreed to be interpreters, it's like, can I still trust you? And
Mm-hmm.
then that went both ways, and you saw them both being kind of skeptical and weary of each other. But I also love the part where he goes, "Oh, you're here to translate." He goes, "No, I was actually here. I was brought here to interpret." I'm like, "Oh yeah, yeah, yeah." And so and I just okay. What about you? I could go on forever, like turn this into a monologue, but it's not. So what was
Um, I I loved the interpreter. I loved Ahmed. I thought that he was very, very real. And slowly when you learn about his past on how he was big in the drug game. Like his family was in the drug game. And the reason why he completely turned his back, not to say that he ever supported the Taliban, but what people need to realize is, and this is what came to mind when I was watching this movie. People do what they have to do to survive. And even if you don't necessarily believe the ideology, you do what you have to do to survive. And so you realize that a lot of times people were joining the Taliban to survive because it was either join or die, your family getting killed. And I'm not saying that that was everybody. But I'm saying a good majority of them, like you join in order to survive, in order to make sure your family survives, you know, and then you get brainwashed into believing the ideology of what they were putting out there. But even when he was literally dragging Sergeant Kinley, and he goes, remember when he went to the sheep herders,
mhm.
and you know he's asking for help, and you know he was like, well, can we see your guest, can we see your partner? And he was just like, yeah. And they look and they were like, oh, okay, so y'all the ones they looking for. And he literally looks him in the face and says, well, I don't like the Taliban, so I'm gonna help you out. And they're literally in the middle of the desert. Like nothing for miles. And he's like, I'm gonna help you out, and I'm also gonna tell you, don't you dare go on these main streets. You're gonna have to take him up the mountain and back down the mountain. And it was scenes like that that like just really hit it hard, because it was such, and I'm it's a sensationalized because it is a Hollywood movie, but I felt like there was such a realism in what he had to do to save this guy and the sacrifice that he made. And it was just, it was a really, really powerful. But I liked when they had kidnapped the guy, the oh my god, it was like they were trying to find out where the bombs were, right? Where the
Oh yeah.
what do you call it? IEDs.
Mhm.
And he kept calling them that, right? He kept calling them Kinley kept calling them IEDs. And when Ahmed was translating, he was just like, bombs. like why y'all trying to be official? You looking for bombs? I was just like, that's true. They looking for bombs. And he was like, IEDs. He was like, yeah, bombs. You know, you say something different, but I know what you mean. And when he was like, well, he wants more money. And he was like, he'll get more money after he tells us what we need to know. And when he takes that money out and literally throws it at the guy after the guy threatened him and his family and everything, just like, here you go. And the guy was like, okay, well, the bomb is going to be here. And then I was just like, so I like that he knew exactly how he knew his environment. He was a great addition to the team. Even when they went to the bomb site, the mining, and he was like, they're lying. Or when he caught the traitor within their platoon, when he was just like, we don't need to go down this road. It's a trap. And Kinley was like, nah, he been with us since the jump. Like, he would never do that. And he was just like, no, I'm telling you, like, I grew up around here. Like, this is a trap. And so it was just the little things like that where he had no reason to help, but he literally just wanted to get his pregnant wife out of the country. That's why he did it. He just needed to get his pregnant wife after losing his son. I'm sure he and his wife made a deal, and that's the reason why he became an interpreter, just to get to America, to save his family.
I love that you brought that up, because he was a badass in his own right, and I love that he wasn't a scared interpreter. He wasn't fumbling around. He wasn't there to try to make friends. It's like, I have a job to do, and that kind of goes back to when the guy, after they lost their first interpreter, and the guy was like, okay, showing them like and it's literally what it was. He had the lineup of new candidates for the job, and he goes, and I guess he's the one who kind of stood out, kind of jacked. Like, he looked like he worked out. Just if you're going by appearances, he looked like he could take care of himself. He had a bald head, and explained to him, like, yeah, he speaks all these different languages. He's really smart. He's good with this, but nobody wants to take anyone's shit. And he was like, oh, okay. And so, and that's the part where they talk about this. And as like you said, you learned that he was big in the drug game. He and his family were in the drug game, and you knew Taliban at that point had to allow it, because that's literally how they made their money. So he did have connections with the Taliban. I'm not saying he was one, but he had the connections, just like his brother did. When his brother said, the only reason why they have not tortured me for my brother's location is because they need the money.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was like, okay. So I love that and I love, like, the part, because I thought he was going to blow the traitor's head off. Like, I really did, because at that point it's like, and it kind of, because like you said, he really had no reason to help, but the desperation was, hey, if this does not go right, fucked up, then there's no chance, there's no way in hell that me and my family are going to survive this and get out of here. As people know that he's a translator working with the Americans. And I think that heightened sense of reality, again, since it is a Hollywood movie and it's events of what these various translators went through, I think that heightened sense of drama, I think in this one of those times where it wasn't overplayed or overblown, because I think it helps us understand, like those who weren't really familiar with it, exactly was at risk. And you could tell someone, hey, they risked their lives, their families were threatened, and we can hear that over and be like, oh, that's bad. But it's with most of us being visual, and we're in this place where some of us are lacking gene altogether, or sympathy, or it's like, fuck it, who gives a shit, until you actually see something, you can never really truly understand or put yourself in that position. So I think just showing the drama of him, what he had to go through, literally through fire, a burning village with the people being hung, knowing that that's what they were doing, looking for him, knowing that they are the cause of that, when it could have been so much easier for him to turn that dude over, or just to leave him for dead and go and hide out somewhere like he had been doing. Then I think that was a good thing of really just kind of showing the audience was at stake and what he was risking to get his family to try to get the fulfillment of the promise, for doing the job that he was doing. So I appreciated the heightened sense of drama. I think in this case it paid off. Um, Paid off really good. The only thing I wish is I think I love the unit, but little bit we saw of the unit, I love. It's only so long of a movie, but I wish we could have gotten a little bit more time with the unit because I love them. I did.
Chow Chow and Day Day,
Jack and Jack and all of them. Tomcat.
Jizzy, and yeah, all of them.
Yes,
Tomcat.
yes, love them. So I was like, ah, I hated that they had to die, and I wish we could have just had a little bit more time with them. Like, oh, I did. So,
I agree.
um,
I agree. I love the platoon and how they were. I didn't realize um that they were gonna die as early as they did, and it was so sad as you were as they were like crouched down to literally see one by one them taking out his team, taking out his platoon until it was just him and Ahmed. But yeah, I love the dynamics that they had. They were hilarious. Or it's like when they were drinking beer, right? When they were drinking beer and Jack was just there, and they were like, when you think we gonna let the newbie have some alcohol? You old enough to drink? He was like, yes, sir. It was like, and they all looked at each other one by one, and they were like, I mean, he had war with us, and they throw up a beer. He's like, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
yep,
I was like, even that, like the whole nonverbal communication was great.
yeah. And then like they, because that was when they were going out looking for when they were on just like the wild goose chase, and at that point they met up and they were like, "Fuck." Expect us to be gone for a couple of hours, and he's like, "You got the barbecues?" Like, I do. And they just sat there
Chow
and
chow.
yeah, there and they started talking, and then oh my god, when he was like, "I want some pig, I miss the swine, I need the pork," and I'm like, dude, you're in the Muslim country, getting pig. And he was like, "What's wrong with a little bit of sausage?" And they were just going on, and I was like, oh my gosh. So I think, and like you said, there was nothing, and some people are like, well, why even show them, why even get, I think it just kind of goes to show the bond that he had with these people that he was serving with, and the bond that because in the beginning, he and Ahmed, you could tell that they didn't quite know how or if they could trust each other, but there was a respect. And I remember when he got Eddie, and that was a lot of people don't know this, is that someone in the unit, in the platoon, usually spoke Farsi or whatever really well, and they
Mm-hmm.
could ask the translator. So they had someone there who could always tell them if they were being double crossed, like if the translator wasn't doing or to do, like someone who could go back and replay the conversation for him. So when he went back to Eddie and he was like, so what did he really say? And he was like, he told him he was going to kill his whole his entire family and wipe out his bloodline. And he was like, oh, why didn't he tell me? And it was basically, well, what could you have done? What would you have done? You know?
Oh yeah, I
And
remember that
so,
because I didn't know that. I didn't know that there's somebody in the platoon that actually, which is very smart, but I didn't know that there would be somebody in the platoon because then my first thought was, then why wasn't he the interpreter? And I was just like, wait, oh,
well,
okay, because then they always know what he's saying.
plus I think, oh God, what did I read? I read something about the reason why they couldn't be the interpreter is because they most people had soldiers, so they would usually get someone who was familiar with the area,
And knew the
and
people.
someone and knew the people, someone that could talk to, and of course some of them thought of them as infidels, but like you said earlier, not everybody, the majority of the people were not siding with the Taliban. So
It was
um,
survival.
yeah. So, but yeah, um, but you could tell, so the show when the respect and the bond is starting to form. And then just the fact, like, and when he was back at home, um, and best friend O'Brady, played by the awesomely handsome Alexander Ludwig, um, he said that he goes, well, they want to give you the medal. He goes, it shouldn't go to me. It should go to him. And they were like, well, it would if they could visas. Well, if we can't find them, and so you see the wheels tick starting to tick right there. Like this, he saved my life. Like, what do you mean you? And then my question is, well, why did y'all let him leave in the first fucking place? You know, like
Because they weren't gonna do nothing for him.
yeah, and so it's just like you said, like the promises that we broke to so many. There were some in the but again, the political red tape here, the same people who wanted to force them to work for them were the same ones who, um, the same people who started the war and were begging for their help were the same ones who didn't want. All of a sudden, once it was said it was time to collect on that promises, oh no, how do we know they're not going to come here and be a terrorist and all this other bullshit? And then 45 just completely shut it down. So, but yeah, and that's when I kind of knew. I'm like, oh, okay, the wheels are starting to turn. But I liked jump to that. Like we got to see a little bit of the process of all the red tape that you have to go to through. And this man is a fucking, and basically y'all are not, like, he can't get anywhere. And so when he went to the captain or the colonel or whoever, and he was like, then he went off like, I know you're a man who honors your debts. Like, I
I
saved your
saved
life.
you 8 years ago, and I'm calling in my debt now, and I know that you are going to fulfill your debt because that is the type of man that you are. I said the guilt tripping of that.
Like the manipulation, the
Mm-hmm.
manipulation game was strong. And and I the only reason he didn't leave sooner is because of his wife. But when she said, we thought you were dead, then I thought, oh gosh, she's gonna. But then I forgot when halfway through that monologue, I'm like, oh no, she's gonna tell him to go. And so she was like, go, but come back. Like, he's the only reason you're alive. So yeah, go get him and his family and bring your ass back home.
I
So
so I like I agree with you. I like the fact of they showed the process and all the red tape, and the fact of saying that he went through it for months, right? While Ahmed is trying to protect his family and trying to stay safe, and he went through months of red tape and still couldn't get anything done, to the point where they were complaining about him because they refused to fulfill their word. And so went and complained to the colonel about what he was doing. And I'm just like, are you serious? I said, you know what? If you don't take your little behind and go save this man and his family, I'm gonna need you to just go. Just go. Like, I was just like, you need to just go. Cause this shit ain't gonna get done on its own. Like, they're not gonna do it, which is so sad because thousands, thousands signed up, and majority of them are still in hiding to this day. Like, it really opens up your mind, and I would hope that more people would go see this movie to really see how people are still struggling to this day, um from this war.
yeah, and
you
what makes
know
it worse, and what makes it worse, and I remember I had when I realized we couldn't be there forever because basically that would turn Afghanistan into an occupied U.S. territory, and no one wants. But we left it in such a mess that the Taliban, of course, we knew as soon as we left what was going to happen, and less than 3 months later, the Taliban had assumed full control again, and all of the, like you said, the translators, they ones who couldn't get out. I'm going to call it in the siege or the purge. In those days before we announced we were getting when we were trying to get out, the final people before we officially completely left. They had no choice but to go back into hiding. And the Taliban started off doing their performative thing about, oh, girls, much better. We're the new Taliban, but it didn't take them long to fall back into their old habits,
Ways. Mm-hmm.
and so it was just like wow. But yeah, I think this because me, I especially that moment Will got stuck on the rock and he just stopped and he started screaming, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and you get it like that was real because I'm like, ooh, he better than me because a bitch like me would have left.
Like the because when he just sat like he was just there, he was just like, huh. And I thought for a minute he was really going to give up. Like he was like, fuck this shit, and was just gonna lay out and just be like, I'm done. But you could clearly see him talking himself into keep going.
hmm
Like 100 kilometers. Like how much miles is that?
I
You
looked it
know?
up, the 100 clicks, and it's roughly a, about a mile. A click is, I think, about 3/4 of a mile, nearly. Um, so, and it took them about 3.5 hours to get to where they were going. But they were also in Humvees, which weren't probably going any faster than 60 miles an hour. They had to be careful. So it was roughly about 100, 120 miles, somewhere in between there
Yeah.
from where they
So just
were. So,
imagine him pushing, and it's not a small dude, a big dude, over 100 miles in Taliban territory,
mhm.
like on
Through
his
the
own,
Afghani mountains.
through the mountains. So it's harder 100 miles through the mountains. That means he had to go up the mountains, across the mountains, and down the mountains to save this man's life. And it's y'all, I will say, not a political movie. This is not a political movie. This is not about the war. It's not propaganda or anything. It's literally just a story of survival. It is a story of determination because most people, let's be honest, would have given up.
hmm
Most people would not have kept going. Most people would not have kept going. That what got me like on my edge of my seat, and I was like, oh my god, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. When he was driving the truck and the
He was rolled up in
Taliban,
those rugs.
yes, he had rolled him up in the rugs, thank God. And the Taliban asked for a ride and was talking to him and everything like that. And he looking back like, oh shit. And their shoes are right near the face of Kinley. And I was just like, oh my God, like edge of my seat. Most of this movie had me on the edge of my seat because you didn't know what was going to happen. You didn't know if he was going to get caught, when he would get caught. Like, when I tell y'all action from beginning to end, intensity keeps your attention the whole entire movie. Absolutely phenomenal. It's very rare that the movie can do this, especially in action flick. There's always slow moments. Even the slow moments or the quiet moments, let me say that. The quiet moments were even intense, where you were just focused because you didn't know what was going to happen next.
Yeah,
So good.
like
So good.
yeah. Now if you say that, and it was a quiet moment. We won't say slow. The movie, it had quiet moments, not slow ones,
Mm-hmm.
but the
Yes.
quiet out because when he was talking to his wife in bed when he couldn't sleep, you know, and he was saying he was just trying a little bit of what he was feeling, what he was going through. I was like, damn. And then when he had to break down at the garage when he was drunk after he got hung up on for like the last time, and he has that moment where the things that he couldn't remember coming back to him, and he really started fully remembering just the death. Like he remembered going through the the smoke filled villages with the people hanging. He remembered going through the mountains. He remembered sharing the water, huddling up because in the mountains and in the desert, it's really hot during the day, but at night it gets really really cold. And so it's those things that he couldn't remember, they start coming back to him, and it's just like fuck. I owe and it dawns on him like I thought I owed this dude, but I owe him more than I can recall because he does flash back to that moment where he was barely conscious and he was rolled up in the rugs in the back of the truck. and the Taliban were like millimeters away from him. Like if they had gone over a bump or if something and like a rug, he would have made a noise, they would have been dead. Like that's just
Mm-hmm.
how like that's just the stakes that were on the line. And so I was even like the part where it shows that they got back to the base, like they were just feet, like maybe 100 what just the base when they made it back to Bagram, and he took a moment and he got the water right, and then when he gave some to Kinley, and then the Taliban rose up, and he really and he's thinking God, and he doesn't move, but then the Taliban dude sees Kinley's shoes,
Mm-hmm.
and he starts putting two together because he didn't have his cover on his face. So it's like the fuck. And so then before he can even do anything, Ahmed, and then he has to shoot the other dude, and like the blood is dripping on Kinley's face, and it's just like wow. And then the military comes in. And he's like, wait, no, I have one of yours. I have one of yours. And then they realize it's Kinley. And it's like, okay. And I love the part with Anthony Starr, like, you know, the dude from
I
Banshee
know who
and
Anthony
also from
Starr
The Boys.
is.
Well, I just had to remember if you knew. He looks so much better when he's not in The Boys bleached blonde hair.
Yes,
But,
he does.
and I was like, I kept wondering, I'm like, why is he calling him Ron? And I thought until the end, I thought that the identity was fake. I thought he was the dude who was arranging the fake identity.
Nope.
But no, keep calling him Ron K. And then he's just treating him like, and then when they figured out who he was, he was like, fuck, dude, if you told me who you were from the beginning, I'm fucking Kinley and this is the Ahmed, hell, he was like, those diplomats would have waited and this shit would have been on me. I would have done this for free.
I love when he said that because he was like, "Oh, okay. Well, now you tell me."
Yeah. Like, dude, hell, you would have it was like you would have never had to go this shit alone. Like it wouldn't have even been all of this. So, but yeah.
And I like that when he, because one of my favorite scenes of the movie is when he goes back and he finds out when the brother helps him to get to Ahmed, and he goes there and he sits down and just having a regular conversation. They're both sitting across from each other. The wife and the baby is across the way, and they're just having a regular conversation like this ain't dangerous. Like
Yeah.
I thought that was just so, because Ahmed was like, oh, okay. He was like, well, I kind of like where I am right now. I got work. Living the life right here. Gets his seat, sit down. They just chatting away, and I'm like, we gonna go like what we doing
Yeah.
right now, y'all? But it was because then once again we had the quiet moments, we have the intense moments, we got the action, but there was also humor. There were funny moments where you just laughed, where you loved the part where they could just have moments of smiling even in the danger that they were in. There were still good moments to be had. And you could see that the bond was there because when he realized that he came for him, I mean, that is a bond that will never break. That's a
Yeah. When
bond
he
that will
realized,
never break. He's like, I got you. Like you, your wife, and your baby. Come on, let's go.
yeah, like when he realized he came for him, you know me, a G like that, don't cry. I'm like, oh shit, nah, because
Yeah.
even though there was nothing, it was just everything, like the nonverbal communication, just the sense of relief that he felt, and then especially when he said, "I got your visas," like when it wasn't, "Hey, I've just come of here," but it was like, I've got you. It wasn't like, "Hey, I just came to get you, and we're gonna sneak you into the country or send you to Europe or whatever." It was, I got you. Like I got you, And I was just like, wow. And it was like you said, it's just a relief. And then them just sitting there having a conversation like old friends, you know. And you could almost tell that he wanted because he was excited to see him, happy to see him, but you knew they were trying not to draw too much attention to themselves
Tension.
too. And it was just, and yeah, and it's just that moment. And like, and sometimes in movies, I'm one of those people because I just imagine stuff. But as I was walking out, I just created a whole little fanfic. I'm like, yeah, I see it. It's like I was like, yep. He goes back to Santa Clarita, and he starts working with John, and the business even takes off even more because he's just an awesome mechanic, and they expand the business and get along, and they become neighbors, like they're besties because they're bonded now. Or you know what, they might get a little bored with it. They might get a little bored with that wife, and John's wife obviously proved that he was just there for decoration because she had the business on lock. So they open up
Lock.
their own. So they open up where they go back
Maybe a second
as
location.
yeah, or they open up their own little PMC deal where they go back and they help extract out of that
Ooh.
situation. So, I planned out a whole little afterlife for them in my head.
I hear. But it was,
Um,
definitely
yeah,
worth it.
so definitely worth it. So, what are you rating the? Oh, my bad, Guy Ritchie's The Covenant, not to be
Yes.
confused with those Covenant horror movies.
Huh?
Covenant horror movies. Never mind.
Oh, I was thinking of the Covenant with the witches, but
Which is horror,
oh,
yeah, that one.
oh,
So,
okay,
okay.
yeah. So for Guy Ritchie's The Covenant movie, I'm giving 5 popcorns. It had me from beginning to end. Like I said, through as we were talking, there were no slow moments, there were no boring moments. It was action packed. There were moments where you're going to laugh. It was intense. There were quiet moments. Every single scene added to the story. There was not a scene that they could have taken out that was a filler. I highly, highly recommend that everybody goes to see it just to see what the situation was like. And just to see, what you do when you have a debt and how you repay that debt. So 5 popcorns to Guy Ritchie's The Covenant. What about you, Eddie?
Yeah, you know what? The more I talked about it, the more this is one where I talked myself up. So I'm gonna have to agree with you. I'm gonna give it the I've seen so far this year. It was really good. It even with Jake Gyllenhaal, it outlived my expectations. Even Guy Ritchie, it was really really good. Um, I love the actors. I think it was perfectly cast. It was just a really good movie. And like you said, it wasn't political. It didn't beat you over the head with the politics. It was just a film of facts. And it took the stories from several people, several real life interpreters. Because if you stay watch the end, it'll show you the pictures of the soldiers and their interpreters, and some of them still have their faces blacked out to this day. Um, this is definitely on my must see list. Um, this is even a movie where I wouldn't even mind seeing the, you know. So yeah, I highly, highly, highly recommend The Covenant and enjoyed it because this is the second thing in like what? This is the second thing from the month of April that's gotten a 5 from you. April was fire.
What else got a 5?
I, God, it was it under the Queen's umbrella?
Oh, yes.
Yes, yeah.
Wait,
It
no.
wasn't
No,
the
The Night Agent.
Queenmaker. The Night Agent, yes, the Night Agent.
The
So
Night Agent got a 5.
yeah. So all
And that was just as
right.
good.
It was just as good. So let's see this streak in May. Moving on. So well that does it, I guess, for this week's episode of the Popcorn Wind Down. Please be sure to listen, follow, and comment anywhere you listen to your podcast. You can also keep up to date on the latest in entertainment and pop culture news, as well as other amazing kernels of popcornwinddown.com. That's it. That's the plug. Thanks
Pop, pop,
as
pop, pop, pop,
always
pop,
for
pop, pop.
pop, 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 pop. And thank you. And be sure to turn in next when we do season 2 of Bel Air. I'm interested. I'm looking forward to that. Have you started watching it yet? Oh, you
I
watched it
already
as it was
finished it.
going on.
Yeah,
Okay.
I watched it every
So,
week, so I finished it.
okay. So I'm the one who'll start binging it. So, all
Uh
right,
huh.
no problem. Well, until next time, as always, I'm Eddie.
And I'm Tammy. Bye.
Peace.